Okay, we're going to call the meeting again to order at 6 o'clock. Now we're on the air. And Clint's joined us. First, approval of the minutes of October 19th. We all read the minutes of October 19th?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the minutes as written and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. You're going to be an interested citizen?
No, I can't even get a copy.
Oh,
So I'm just gonna read it, because I wasn't there last month.
oh, mine's all stapled together. Interested citizen. Are the Moores interested in speaking to us today? Yes. Well, then come on up.
Well, good evening. I'm Peggy Moore. I live in Kaiser, and I like doing volunteer work around in Kaiser and just enjoy the town.
And I'm Jerry Moore. I'm the other half. And if I can't hear you, I'm gonna let her do the talking. I'm just here for moral support. My hearing aids are going bad. I've got an appointment next week to get in to get them fixed. But for right now, I can't hear too well.
So we're here tonight to give a report on our project that we came last month and received a grant October 8th. Our start date was to be November 15th. And our project was to dismantle and rebuild 16 raised beds for the Peggy and Jerry Moore Community Garden. So we had obstacles, but we had good days. And we received our lumber. We ordered and received our lumber. Found out it wasn't cut right, so we trimmed and chopped and cut and got it all right. Rebuilt our beds. Jerry and I basically did it. One day, 2 different volunteers came and helped us out. And thanks to Robert and his crew, we wrangled them into carrying the beds over and putting them in the garden after they got off work. 3 different nights. So, muscle men, you know. That was great. We really appreciated that. And we had ordered 20 yards of wood chips. And the day of the wood chips, evidently the dump truck was confiscated by another group. But they found a trailer to bring the wood chips. And then our volunteers did come, helped us spread. Of course, again, Jerry and me. We had one other person helping us. And the volunteers came and we got the wood chips all spread. So our project, we got the grant Tuesday, October 8th, the last meeting you had. Our start date was to be Friday, November 15th. That's in a couple more days. But November 7th, last Thursday, our project was finished.
Completed.
Totally completed. We're happy. It looks great. I invite you all to drive by and look. The gates are locked, so you can't go in.
Turned it over to Robert and he passed it and
Yeah,
everything's a go.
yeah. So we're really happy with it, and so our project's done, and thank you very much for the grant. Any questions?
Well, good job bringing it in ahead of schedule.
Yeah, and under budget.
And under budget.
And under budget. We managed to get a discount of $174.
On the lumber.
Where's the location of it?
The location is just not too far from here. It's in next to Carlson Skate Park.
It's right out and back.
Yeah,
Right over
whichever
there.
direction it is, that way.
Just right over
Yeah.
there.
And it's a replacement of all of the flower beds, and your anticipated longevity is about 15 to 20 years on those, right?
Yes,
With
the
treated wood and
lumber
everything?
should last 15 to 20 years. It's treated lumber. 16 raised garden beds. And we made them deeper so that the root crops will do better, and I actually think people will be able to increase their production of their vegetables, because when it's deeper, you can plant things a little bit closer, and, you know.
It was 6-inch beds and we put in 10-inch beds this time.
Any other questions? All right.
All
Well,
right,
thank you very much
thank
for
you very
your
much.
donation, and it's completed now.
Very good.
And I'll be thinking of something else and seeing you again soon.
Mr. Davis. Jeff Davis. Are you an interested citizen today?
Well, I was on the,
He's actually,
He's on the grant request. Yeah, grant request,
Okay,
maybe there's
so
some other
talk later.
citizens here, I don't know. No. Well, then we are on to item 4.
No, we still got, is that Crystal?
Crystal Gonzalez.
Yeah,
Crystal Gonzalez, did you want to speak? No. Okay. Well, welcome anyways. Glad to have you here.
so I can't read.
Andrea.
Oh, that's what it is.
Andrew, do you have anything
Andrea.
you wanted to address to the Parks Board? Well, welcome anyways.
I can read 1850 stuff, I can't read this. All right,
So,
so,
Mr. Chair,
yes, sir.
under interested parties, we've actually got the projector down here. If it's okay with the board, I'd like to show the board some of the great work that the parks staff has been doing this summer. Yes, no?
Sure.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, members of the board, one of the opportunities I have as a certified FAA drone pilot was to go out and actually do some really cool video of some of the projects that Robert and his staff have been able to do over the course of the last 3 or 4 months. I'm going to start off with the Willamette Manor Sports Court, and this is still a little bit under construction. As you can see, the fencing needs to go up and there's going to be some striping and other things that need to happen. But essentially this whole court has been replaced, the new concrete put in, and it's going to end up being a really neat facility when it's all done. I think if I recall, it's going to be a true multi-use court in terms of basketball, tennis, and pickleball, and I think there may be even some allowances for futsal as it gets striped out and prepared. And I think, Robert, you said that's probably going to be late spring next year before it can get surfaced?
Yeah.
So this is one of the big ones that we were hearing from the West Kaiser Neighborhood Association. If you recall, over the last few years, they attempted to try to resurface this, but there's some challenges with that, and there I am. But pretty excited to see that project done. The next one, this is one that I think that we've all been very excited about for a long time, is the skate park. And so this is about 5 o'clock, I think, on a Thursday. And you can just see users all over the skate park. There was a bunch of people in the driveway as well, just kind of hanging out. And it's really cool to see the users out there. And so that was kind of a quick flight, but just kind of cool to get an aerial eagle eye view of that. And then their last one here is our shade sail project. And this one wasn't, this was kind of an add-on project this year, but it's really cool to see this project complete. You can kind of see, I sort of pan around the whole complex here, and it covers the majority of the tot lot area, and then does some around the swings and some of the benches and stuff like that. It doesn't cover the full playground because a lot of the structures, I think, towards the back have already shade sort of built into them in other areas. But if you keep a close eye here on the green pole as we come around, we have our friend sitting on top of the pole on the green sail. So this young man decided to get his own eagle eye view from it. So I think Robert and the parks folks have some ways to sort of prevent that kind of behavior, but if you build it, kids will climb. So we learned, and yeah. Yeah,
I've
Clint.
got a question here. What did it end up costing to put those sails in?
Robert would know better than I do.
$200,000.
For the second part, or to putting the frames in, and does that include the sails
The
too?
entire project.
How much, 200 and what?
It was about 200,000.
Okay.
The problem with that is the amount of wind shear that those have to be able to withstand in case we had a storm hit to keep them from the posts bending over. They had to drill holes in and around the existing playground where we have rubberized surfacing 8 to 9 feet deep and concrete those steel beams in place. So that was a lot of the cost. But this was the number one thing that people have asked for over and over since the toy was built was, can we please get some shade over part of the toys and a lot of the seating areas? And so the shade in this particular image right here is broadcast more to the north right now because the sun is so far south. It's basically, we're going into winter almost right now, right? But come middle of summer, June, July, August, September, the sun will be more directly over the top of those, which will shade everything directly underneath one. And yeah, it'll be really good.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the little boy that was on top of the post. So what are some of the things that can be done to prevent that type of behavior? Especially like I can see more adventurous little boys wanting to, or girls jumping on top of the sails, you know?
So right now,
Don't press. Right now, we are having cone tops made for the posts. So you won't be able to sit on it. It'll slide off. And it won't even look attractive to kids to go up there anymore.
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
So that was just really it. Just take a couple minutes to kind of get a visualization. I know some of us have very busy schedules and it's hard to kind of get out and see it, but it's really neat to kind of get that bird's eye view and, you know, just kind of put a period on the celebration of the really great work that Robert and his crew did this summer. And I think it's just the first part of what should be a series of excellent projects over the next few years. So that's all I got.
Now, Mr. Davis, grant requests.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Councilman Herrera, and our esteemed city employees. It's good to see you all today. I come before you humbly asking for a grant request that you may have in front of you already. You may not. So as many of you recall, last year you supported a project in which we put 2 exercise areas in 2 parks, Claggett Creek and Country Glen. This year, my hope is to put exercise areas in parks on the other side of River Road, and that would be from south to north. It would be Wallace House Park, Kaiser Rapids Park, and then Meadows Park. The request is for a matching grant of $10,000. The project in its total estimate should be about $36,336 to complete. And we would anticipate it happening over some phases. Of course, site preparation, then we'd have to install the concrete, and then finally the equipment would be installed. Does everybody have the full request in front of them?
They all got it on their, in their packet. They didn't
Okay.
get printed copies.
Excellent. So you can see we start with Wallace House Park, and that's page 2. The stars indicate ideal locations, and as last year, those locations were they're of course negotiable, but we came to those locations based on feedback from from Robert, and essentially trying to take into account the neighborhood and the homes near the neighborhood. So you can see at Wallace House, the idea would be to keep it somewhere near the play structures, but not too close to the houses. If you turn to the next page, there's a rendering of the area. It looks very similar to what's at Claggett Creek. It would be pull-up bars, push-up bars, and some boxes for this. You can do a lot on these things, which I hope to in the future kind of help people understand all the utility with these pieces of equipment. Right now, we're kind of focused on infrastructure, so.
So we do have one copy of these images on the dais that's coming down, so as
Okay.
Jeff's referencing some
And
of these.
I'll pick them up too. So then at Kaiser Rapids is the next location. And really, we're talking about potentially down by the river near the boat ramp, or potentially somewhere else, kind of closer up to the play structure. Not real close, but it's near the walk path that kind of is just south of the play structure. And there would be a more substantial exercise area. I think I would say 8 people could use this at the same time safely. It includes an area for sit-ups, an area for stretching, pull-ups, push-ups, and of course just the surface around it for any kind of work that you want to do on the ground, as well as knee raises and dips and exercises like that. That would be this one here. There's a couple views of that. And then lastly, we have Meadows Park, where this piece of equipment would be kind of near the walkway as you come in through the neighborhood and kind of turn south. And I could actually pass this around if you don't have enough copies. And we were thinking it would be one of these multi-exercise pieces of equipment that's over at Country Glen that would allow people to do assisted pull-ups and dips, and then also do knee raises and squats and stuff like that. Currently, I have a grant money from, some of my personal money, as well as Kaiser Rotary and Salem Concrete will be donating the majority of the work and the concrete for the actual concrete pads, as well as the concrete curbing around the areas that are going to have bark chip as the surface underneath the equipment. And that leaves the $10,000 request that I'm bringing to you today, which would make up the remaining amount needed to do this project.
This would be for all 3 parks?
Yep. Questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Holland?
Yes.
Wait, well, I don't know. Actually, shouldn't David be calling the shot?
Matt, what is your question?
So I just have a couple. So Jeff, these have been up for a few months. I've noticed some, especially at Claggett, and a little bit Country Glen, which I haven't been there very often, but what's the usage been like in your experience so far?
Yeah, so I don't go to the parks as often as I'd like to. However, when I go by, I regularly see people there. I don't have any real user data at this point.
Clint, have you Councilor Herrera, have you noticed at Country Glen, are you seeing folks out there using it?
I was just gonna talk about that. Mr. Davis, there's some people that use it regularly.
Oh,
2
fantastic.
people in particular, and I'm not one of them. No, there's the first few weeks, there was a curiosity came into play. There was a little graffiti and stuff like that. We talked about that, Robert. And kids were kind of messing around. They leave coats there. And then I slowly saw people using it, and there's somebody taking pictures there.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that?
I do not.
Somebody comes in with a tripod and takes pictures of himself doing.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And I've seen him on 3 different occasions. I thought maybe it was part of your promotion.
No.
But it's surprising how in the last, well, not in the last week or so, but during the last part of the last couple of months, since the weather was okay, it was being used quite regularly by 3 people, 2 in particular that use it quite. In fact, I talked to one of the gentlemen and told him how the project went. And on another side note, they did Robert, just for you, they did a really good job with the seating around there. Almost too good because that looks really clean.
Everything else isn't quite as clean.
And it fit perfect. I was thinking I was going to go over there with Ray and but they did a really good job. So
Excellent.
Kudos to that. But as far as the equipment, I'm really happy that it's there. I wish physically I was in shape to be able to use it, but it's used and it's a really good addition to our park. So I thank you, Mr. Davis, for your vision, and just wanted to let you guys know how that works.
So, 2 more if I can. So I know Rotarians were instrumental in kind of putting this together. What was the number, if you could guess, how many Rotarians actually, because a big part of this is the volunteer labor and part of the things that we get out of the matching grant. Do you remember what the number was? I think it was like 5 to 10, wasn't it, over the course of the whole project that helped out?
Yeah, I would say 10 to 15 Rotarians, yeah,
So you're
over
getting
the
a good-
course.
Okay. So last question, knowing what you know now, the last set of projects versus this set of projects that you're proposing now, are you finding cost-saving measures and other things that you can do to cut costs and reduce the overall labor need, but still maintain the quality that you've done over these projects?
That's a great question. I was looking at, for instance, Wallace House. You'll recognize the equipment looks very similar to what we did at Claggett, except it's about $4,000 difference in the total cost. And that's because the other pieces of equipment theoretically, they had this ergonomic aspect to it, but having had the equipment in my hands now, it was very apparent that it really didn't add the value that the price tag reflected. So I went with similar equipment that just didn't have that aspect to it and saved quite a bit.
So one comment, when you're considering meadows, I highly recommend try to get it as far away from the neighborhoods as possible. There's, with the new playground that's been there, the increase in traffic has been a bone of contention for some of the neighbors. And so maybe if they're considering like a River Road running path, maybe split the difference and look somewhere. Robert will probably have the best idea of ultimately where it might go. And if that's the case, that he said that's the best place, then I'm just going to say, I'm sorry, Robert, and I'll be quiet. But just consider the neighbors, I think, a little bit when you're looking at location at Meadows.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because we do try to do that.
Yeah, and these locations aren't set in stone yet. It's, still in the design phase. Once we are ready to rock and roll, then we can go take a real close look and try to maybe get some of the neighbors' opinions on it too.
Cool. That's all I got, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Well, Clint, can I call on Clint? He tried to talk a while ago.
I know, he ignored me.
Yeah.
One of the places you should have on here eventually is the Kaiser Little League Complex. And the reason I say that, their traffic would be as great as all these put together.
I would agree. You're absolutely
I have
right.
no idea about just the traffic that's there all through the week, all day Saturday, all day Sunday.
Yeah. And a lot of that traffic is kids wishing they could play, but they're watching their brother or sister
That's
play and they
correct.
could use something to do. Yep. Great point. Great point.
Your turn.
Yeah, so one of my comments is I noticed that Meadows Park is a 7-station multi-gym and it's a 12 by 12 concrete pad. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing that was for accessibility purposes, or what was your decision on making that concrete versus the other ones?
Yeah, great question.
tip.
So it really comes down to the recommendation and the guidance given by the manufacturer of the equipment. And in this particular instance, there's no fall risk. So then it's kind of a fringe benefit in that it has the concrete, which increases accessibility. However, it really just doesn't require the fall protection.
Okay, yeah, because, I would just want to make sure that these are also available for every citizen person who lives in our city, and so accessibility is definitely something that I always keep in mind to make sure that the structures that we do have available for the public are available for everybody, regardless of their abilities. And so I do appreciate that that is going to be, even though maybe the intention wasn't to be accessible, I can see it being accessible to someone who might be like a wheelchair user or have some mobility issues, versus when there is bark chip, it becomes much more difficult for someone to get their wheelchairs in there and be able to utilize the equipment.
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Right now, we have the areas arranged so they are adjacent, meaning connected to some infrastructure. And the hope is that once we have several of these places created, we could find a way to get funding to then come back and put in a surface that would then turn all of these into something that's ADA accessible. However, in the initial stages, we realized that in order to do that with just 2 parks, it was going to cost as much as it would now for us to do 5 parks, because it's getting the equipment here that really is the big expense. So that's I'm glad you bring that up, and we hope to now do something to address the accessibility across the other areas once that's all in place.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Zaira.
One comment, one statement. For your future projects, you need a hitching post to people walking their dogs. They can tie their dog up,
That's a great idea.
or you can lean your bike up against the hitching post and then do a few sets of assisted pull-ups or assisted bar dips or whatever. So a hitching post.
I think that's a great idea. I'll put it down. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm just going to echo Zaira's comments a little bit. I think path is co-locating them as close to a path as possible is a good idea. I see that as being a long-term benefit rather than not, right? And so,
Yeah.
And I think for the most part, you're doing well with that. I just keep that in mind as you're looking at your plans and where you're looking at stuff. For one, it's going to make it cheaper for the city to eventually create a path there, or if it's really adjacent, then there's almost not a need for that. So I would just echo Zaira's point on that, especially for the concrete surface one.
Yeah, you bring up a great point in that, and what we did originally when we prioritized these parks was we went in and looked at where there was already infrastructure in place that we could leverage. And so you'll notice that the places that we started with had recently had new paths put in, and these areas went in right next to them. And that is what we'll continue to do, which is why we've identified Wallace House, Kaiser Rapids, and Meadows. So thank you.
Any other questions? We have a motion?
So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to recommend that the Parks Advisory Board accept the application as presented from Jeff Davis for the exercise equipment to be located at Meadows, Kaiser Rapids, and Wallace House.
Is there a second?
I second.
Good question. So the total amount that,
Okay.
I'm not able to ask the question.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the total amount that they're talking about for the grant is 10?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, and how much do we have in the grant fund this year?
15. We
Does
had
that
15.
include the youth stuff, the
Yeah.
15?
Okay,
And we've already used about 1,500 for Peggy and Jerry's, right?
Roughly, yeah. Well, not quite, but we have about 13,650 remaining.
And that resets when?
July 1st.
July 1st. But is that 5,000 for the youth program, is that locked in only for youth program?
No,
Okay,
that is not.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions,
So
discussion?
Does that, being brand new, I'm just gonna throw it out there, does that not seem like a big chunk of the total to be used for one project?
It's not unusual.
Okay. Just asking.
Yes, it is, but it's not unusual.
Do those funds ever go unused?
Not typically.
Also, just so you understand, as we progress farther into the year, these projects have to be complete by June 30th. And so the sooner we allocate the money towards projects, the better. That gives people some time to complete them. If we don't approve anything until halfway through the budget year, then it's a shorter timeline, especially on larger projects. Some projects can go pretty quick and some take a lot longer.
So
This would be
asking
one
for-
that takes a lot longer.
So for asking for 10, we have a total of 15?
Correct.
So would the project still go forward if, say, you got 7,500?
It might need to be changed.
In what respect?
So we'd be looking at potentially different equipment at Kaiser Rapids, and/or we'd be looking at my pocketbook. So,
Well, I think one of the things we have to take into consideration on this is there's a $33,000 aggregate impact to the park system. So they're only asking for roughly less than a third. So that's kind of, if you look at the overall impact, there's, Rotary's bringing in, I think the total they brought in for this whole project was like 25,000, wasn't it?
correct.
So, I mean, they 13 or 12,500 per sort of project, and then the amount of labor and stuff. So I think the bang for your buck is definitely there as it relates to this project. But I also recognize, we don't know what other projects might come out, over the course of the next 7-8 months.
And that's the only thing. To me, it wasn't the total cost, it was the amount of what's left in the pool, and we're taking that much from the pool.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, if we do see, let's say, the motion on the table right now to approve as presented, if we do see, towards the end of the year that we're starting to see more and more grant requests, I think that's going to help shoulder the conversation as it relates to the next year's budget cycle. I mean, I'm not saying that we need to, keep bumping up the grant program, but, we went from 10,000 this year to 15,000 this year with a major component of that trying to be the youth program, which right now we've only got one, and frankly, we probably won't see a lot of youth projects until spring, because that's when they're gonna be wrapping up, junior and senior years, needing to get those kinds of projects done. So it's just one of those kind of tools to have in our hat. So as we look forward, towards the next fiscal year and things like that.
I have a question. So Robert, or I guess for the board as well, so once the funds are exhausted, do we close the grant request? Or do we continue to accept applications and then let people know that we may consider them after we receive further funding? Because I would hate to have someone go through the entire process, fill out a grant request, and then come to the meetings to find out we don't have any money left. So how do we notify people that we've exhausted our funds?
To my knowledge, there's no notification on the front side, but if we received an application, we would let the person know that the funds are exhausted for the year, but to encourage them to come back once the budget starts over. And they could come to a meeting or a couple meetings prior to the new budget year and get your guys' approval, if you will. So they'd be able to start the project sooner, but I don't know how we go about informing everybody exactly where the numbers are at throughout the year.
I just want to say I agree with Matt that it is a lot of bang for the buck compared to, usually it's matching grants, so it seems like it's a lot more actually value going into it.
And also I remember when you first came to the board meeting, and you've honestly done a lot of the legwork. You've done a lot of the work. You came in with an idea, and it's really cool to see how it's come to fruition and how you decided to take that idea and expand it to all of our parks. So that to me speaks louder than words. And yeah, I think this is really, and that you've been able to find people to pitch in and pay for the majority of the project. So
Thank you.
just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
So, Robert, question in terms of, if the grant's for $10,000 and Jeff's able to do this for less, let's say it comes in at 27,000, is the opportunity to scale it back. So for example, if you don't need the full 10,000, you're not going to spend it, right?
Yeah, correct.
And how would those funds then be reallocated
We
back?
don't, it's reimbursable. So he only gets, he gets reimbursed when the project's complete. And so if it checks in and it's like $27,000, you know, that's going to be between Robert and Tim and Jeff to figure out how to sort of cycle that. I think this is an up to $10,000, not necessarily saying, here's a check for $10,000, come back when you're done, right?
Yeah, I mean, it could be both ways. It could be that we still hand him the 10,000 because it's still more than a match, and that leaves him more money sitting somewhere to move forward into next year's fitness equipment, assuming he wants to do more, or surfacing options. Or if he wanted to resubmit some paperwork saying there was some money savings available and I'm not asking for 10,000 anymore, I'm asking for X, then that would be probably okay too. It's not something that generally happens. Generally at this point in the application process, the numbers are pretty accurate.
I think Jeff's responsible enough to do the right thing.
Oh, thank you. If I may just address the group, the biggest cost is the equipment. And I've been thinking, well, this is an aside, but I have been thinking about a prototype piece of equipment that would be much less expensive that could be put in every park, just because of this experience. But the point is, a lot of these numbers are they're hard. They are the numbers, and a lot of it is associated with shipping and manufacturing of this equipment. You know, some of these things come in several boxes, and well, I think we could look, but the shipping's over $2,000 on some of this stuff. So it gets expensive.
Can't get it on Prime?
No, yeah. That said, for those of you, so I just went through this last year. We did do 2 parks last year, and essentially there is an accounting at the end of the year that I demonstrate where the money was spent, and that we did in fact meet the requirement for the matching grant. So if there is an opportunity to reduce the use of these funds, we would take advantage of it then.
And there's no local company that has any type of ability to do that kind of stuff?
I wish there's not.
To avoid the shipping? Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Any other questions? So we have a motion.
We have a motion and a second, Mr. Chair.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Cheshire Cat.
What have I got myself into? Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Just to clarify a little bit, so this means that the Parks Advisory Board is going to recommend to City Council to move forward on this? Is that?
No.
We don't have to.
We don't have to.
It's because the council is just done right here.
Okay.
We're the only board that can do that.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
So now the grant for Wayne Fry.
September 8th, 2017. Goal! Country Glen scores a soccer field. Thank you, Kaiser Tide. So, 3 years ago, I wanted to build a soccer field at Country Glen Park, and we got it built. We arranged to have some financial support from the Salem Kiwanis Club. We arranged to have some maintenance support from the Kaiser Soccer organization, kaisersoccer.org. And then I was also set up as a primary maintenance person. The soccer field was damaged this year. One of the goalposts was broken beyond repair. And so it was removed. And for a while I left the other goalpost up, and it looked pretty sad all by itself. It was an older goalpost, pretty flimsy material, PVC pipe. It weathered. The nets were still in pretty good condition, but the goalposts themselves were, one of them was totally destroyed and the other one was not very happy. So what I would like to do is replace with a matching grant the goalpost, the nets, for the soccer field at Country Glen Park. And I put together a matching grant request. I'm asking for a grant amount, the total amount would be for new goals, nets, paint, and wheels for the goals, $3,783. And I'm going to put in some labor. Labor, I'm hopefully can be, reduce that amount a little bit. I'll donate some of my time. I have time to work and take care of a soccer field. So what I'm looking for is $1,891.50 from the city. And then I still need to find the match for that, the 50% match. It's fall and winter right now. No one's playing soccer right now. But so I'm looking at start date of March 2020 and hopefully have it done up and running by April. Any questions? So I'm asking the Parks Board for a matching grant for $1,891, or $1,891.
So do you have a commitment for the distributor donation yet?
No, I don't. And that would say, we looked at that option with a distributor donation, and I don't really want to pursue that. I would rather just purchase it from a vendor without having to deal with a distributor discount. The city has distributors that could possibly offer a discount. It would be more involved, that process. I would rather choose a different vendor and get the equipment, the similar equipment, and just have it shipped. There are shipping costs included in that.
I have a question.
Yes.
So Wayne, how are these posts going to be stored? Like at the end of the day or when they're not in use?
The ones I'm looking at are going to be semi-permanent. They will have wheels on them. They can be moved. Permanently mounted wheels is what I'm planning on. They're going to be 21 feet by 7 feet, aluminum. Could also be steel. Steel costs a little bit more. I think aluminum is strong enough. As far as storing them, let's say it's the end of the season. They could be pushed to the end of the park and just, parked there.
I don't know much about posts, so like my concern would be that the wheels might be taken off or that they may be vandalized, and I would hate to have like a post with 3 wheels or no wheels at all and it not being mobile. So I'm not sure how sturdy, I don't know much about this.
They're
I'm not
similar
sure
to the
how sturdy
goals
they
at
are.
Claggett Creek, right? The big, large frame.
Large frame, they have depth.
I mean, they're a few hundred pounds. Somebody's not just picking these
Gonna
things
pick
up.
it up
Yes,
and walk
yes.
it.
Yeah, and you can't really put it, it's too big to fit in your truck or your unless you have a big truck.
Don't challenge people.
So as far as storage, at the end of the season, you could just leave them right where they are. Or
just
if
put
you
them
want to use,
inside.
it's a multi-use field. And if they need to be moved, they can be moved. And they're going to have wheels on them. Permanently mounted wheels is the plan that I'm looking at.
Yes, Matt?
So I love the concept of the project. I think there's 2 challenges that arise for me on this particular project. The first is the location. We've heard often from you that there's very little use out of this complex. So that raises the question to me then, since you've been in the city now for a few years, is there another location that you think that this might have? Because I think Country Glen is a lot of challenges. One, parking and access. Two, unless you know where it's at, you're never going to find it. Three, you're not going to get year-round accessibility to it because there's so much saturation of the grass in that field, right? So the concept is great. I think what you're doing in trying to bring this is the right objective. I just think the location is wrong for those few key elements. Councilor Herrera, you live right across the street from it. You've often stated that you don't often see people out there using it. Is that right?
One of the reasons, in my opinion, was the way they didn't look sturdy enough. Robert, you know what I'm talking about.
The style of goal that was installed previously.
And there were constant, challenges, just putting it up, and
they
I'd see
would,
Wayne out there work hard every day, trying to put them back up, and I think, in fact, I think in my last conversation with you, I asked you to go look at some other ones over down the road by Perkins, remember? I don't know if you saw them.
They were more sturdy.
Yeah, and that was what I thought, because in my opinion, if they were, yes, it's soggy over there.
If they were better quality.
Yeah, but if they were better quality, I think they would get more use, because I see people come up there and, they wouldn't really sustain. They wouldn't sustain. I mean, they'd play for a while, and after a while, they were pulling on it or something, So I think a higher quality or better would probably be more useful, because they were not used to the capacity that I thought they would be, put it that way.
I was disappointed at the use of, I don't think they were used very much. I was very disappointed.
Well, ironically, it's kind of two sides of the same coin, right? The Country Glen coin. At one hand, you got an exercise equipment that's being used frequently. On the other hand, unfortunately, we have a soccer system that's not, and maybe it is the quality of, and not to discredit your, please don't take it that way, but maybe it is, people don't recognize it as being the kind of field that it's intended to be, because they don't see your traditional style goals. So it's just kind of one of those things, like, this is take into consideration what we've got left, which is about $3,600. It's half of that. And, you've also got the lawnmower still in here. I don't know if that's part of your request, because we got two sort of requests. I don't know if that lawnmower is still part of this or not. So again, I think there's a little more questions that I have. Mostly, it's not the concept. And the concept's brilliant. It's the location. And so I don't know
I agree.
if we want to gamble a little bit and say if we build it, maybe they'll come. Meaning we put these new goals, standards in and stuff, and it's going to draw the expected use that I think you've very well intended it to be. And then if it doesn't draw the intended numbers that we want, then we maybe look at somewhere else in the system where it could make more sense. But then it's a challenge of moving them and everything else like that, and then finding the right location. So
I have not looked at other locations. Don't have a plan for that.
I have a question. So who's the target audience for that specific location?
It's a community practice field. It's designed for all ages, anytime. Moms and their kids in the morning, kids after school, high school kids could practice there. It's just a practice field. It's not a tournament field, and that's based on the size of the field. It's smaller than a tournament field. I'm going to reference another soccer field I worked on in Ontario. It was built in the east side of Ontario, large Hispanic population. They used that field every day. There'd be times when there'd be 3 different groups using different parts of the field, practicing, passing a ball around, or just shooting goals on one end, and a mom and a kid would be at the other end. And that's what I was hoping for here, but I really didn't see the usage, probably the location and the quality of the goalpost. I'm okay with looking for another location. I'm okay we're not doing it at all. It's,
Well, I want you to give up on it. I think it's a very worthwhile project. I just think there's some challenges that still exist that we might, and I don't know if maybe you want to chat with Robert, if Robert's maybe got, I mean, if you've got some ideas, Robert, of where some of the locations that might be more feasible. I don't know. I want this to be successful because I think the intended goal here, no pun intended, is really good. This is a very low maintenance, very, it provides a tremendous amount of opportunity for a lot of ages and a lot of folks to be able to use. I just want to make sure that we're being as proactive with this as possible. And maybe if it isn't Country Glen, then maybe Robert has an idea of where it might be better served in the system. And I don't want to put him on the spot right now, which I kind of did, but
Nothing's coming to mind. I mean, we have soccer field already set up at Claggett Creek that's used regularly for both soccer and rugby. But a lot of our other parks have open spaces with like backstops that are more the size of a t-ball field than an actual soccer field. Soccer fields are quite large. Nothing's coming to mind right now off the top of my head.
So, yes, go ahead. So we can see what the group would like to do. I'd like to get the motion on the floor that we approve this request for Country Glen.
So we have motion to approve this project at Country Glen. Do we have a second?
I do have one other, an idea here. Matt, you mentioned at one point that the city might take this over as a maintenance item.
no,
No.
the conversation I had with park staff on this was towards the end of the fiscal year, if there's money left in the pot, if the city would be willing, not the parks grant money, but if there's like, in the use of park projects or whatever else, if there was a little bit of money left over at the end of the year, if they'd be interested in just purchasing the goals rather than using this, the matching grant program. Because it's not, it's strange to say, 3 years we wouldn't be saying this, but this isn't such an insurmountable amount of money that the city may not be able to, find $4,000 to be able to bring this out. But then it becomes a system, then it becomes a park system asset, not just one park's asset. And so, and that's kind of my struggle here is a little bit, it's tied to one park right now, which, could prove to be fantastic. You might put up those new goals and, Roland's calling the city saying everybody is parked in front of my driveway and I can't sleep in the morning. And that would be a fantastic consequence, no fault of Councilor Herrera's, but it's just kind of a different way of looking at it. And I think that when I talked to the Public Works Director and Robert about it, they entertained that concept as a possibility. They didn't say
Okay,
yes, for sure
nothing
they would
that-
do it, but they entertained it as a possibility. And so I'll let Robert speak to that, but.
I mean, we'd entertain the idea, but basically, if we're not getting the public coming to us saying, hey, this is a need that the city has, which I personally haven't received, I'd have a hard time just supporting a random project. It's a little different when it's a grant application. These can tend to be people's ideas and thoughts, and maybe they're more plugged into the community in certain areas, and they know of a need that hasn't yet made its way back to staff. So,
Robert, what does Northview look like in terms of footprint? Because
it's too much slope, and that's even soggier than Country
it
Glen.
really?
Yeah, it's actually, Northview sits in a big bowl, and it all drains into the middle and then heads towards a catch basin. So it's even worse.
And Ben Miller wouldn't work because of the slope too, right?
Yeah,
It's too small.
it's way too short, way too short.
And Willamette Manor's got that big rolling hill. I mean,
Yep.
Bob Newton, same
There's
thing.
a lot of our parks are not very flat.
A lot of space at Kaiser Rapids.
How about Kaiser Rapids?
Lots of space at Kaiser Rapids, but we'd be building a brand new field. I mean, you'd have to add irrigation, you'd have to level it, you'd have to seed it. You're not talking a couple $1,000s, you're talking
Well, what if
big
we just
bucks.
borrowed Clint's parking lot during the times he's not using it? It'd keep it nice and mowed, it'd be irrigated and pretty.
Well, but what you're talking about there is way over the other side, not where we park.
I mean, it's in the master plan at Kaiser Rapids Park for a couple soccer fields. So.
Because everything,
I mean, it's
I mean, those
Yeah.
things aren't permanent, so
There's
you
nothing
can
out there for
just do the
soccer
soccer there.
In all reality, that's a way different conversation right now than this. Unless this was not to go forward, then we could discuss that at a different level. But that's
Wouldn't those goals be movable? I mean, they're not absolutely permanent to one park.
correct. They're not permanently mounted. They could be
I mean, so they could be
moved,
put in there and then moved to
removed.
another
They-
park. at
Yeah,
another time.
it's not like a play structure where they're concreted in the ground.
Right.
These are mobile. He's talking about mobile wheels. So,
I think I think there's more research that could be done, that we could get a little bit, dial it in, fine tune it a little bit more. I think a good idea that could move forward with that.
I mean, anytime you can, my opinion on it, and I know we're not in discussion, Mr. Chair, we do have a motion on the table.
It has not been seconded. If you look at the master plan for Kaiser Rapids, I believe the soccer field is up towards the big toy in the middle of the swale.
Correct.
So we would need to fill that in before we could put a soccer field there, correct?
major dirt work would have to take place. I don't have exact numbers, but I think there's probably an 8-foot low.
At
You're talking
least.
earth movers, not just like a backhoe. Big
Yes.
project.
And the other end, which is more flat, is an open area in the
Yes,
master plan.
yeah, open, yep, closer to the river,
So we couldn't put it there.
where we set up for the solar eclipse camping.
Well,
That
it
is
was
flatter,
just-
but that's
yes, it's-
considered just an open play area at this point.
Yes.
So it sounds like the motion's failed for lack of a second. Is that, I'm not hearing anybody seconding the motion. We're having a lot of discussion, but is there anybody that's wanting to second it?
It's not something I want to totally let go of, but I'd
No,
like to give it some more
I-
consideration.
Yeah,
I wanna
yeah,
dive
definitely
into
would
this
like more
more.
information,
No, I
like
really
Clay
do.
mentioned.
Yeah.
Like, and honestly, I'm a little more inclined to want to kind of poke at Robert and the Public Works Director a little bit to try to see if we can find a way to help make your vision come true. I mean, this is, I love this project, I really do. I mean, we've talked about this many, many times. I think if we're going to do it, we need to do it right. And again, it could be that this is the right way to do it, just throwing these goals out there. I think there's some questions that need to be asked and some ideas that need to be conceptualized a little bit more, and I don't know how to get there. I'm not a soccer expert by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah, I don't know. Any other thoughts that we want to?
I agree with you. We need to look at this a little more and see if we can find some place.
Possible.
We need to make this work. I mean, it's such a low impact, low maintenance opportunity for anyone in the city to be able to participate, but we want to make sure we get usage out of it. And I don't know, maybe it's worth just doing a little door-to-door around the neighborhood of Country Glen and just, or maybe get on the next door thing in that area and just kind of get the feel for folks. I mean, if we can come back with some numbers and we got parents, chomping at the bit saying, yeah, we really want this in our park, then, hey, we're proved wrong and we can figure it out. But that's just my own, the numbers aren't there right now.
Okay. I appreciate your time. Thank you for your consideration.
Well,
It's,
are we done with the discussion, Mr. Chairman?
Are we done with the discussion?
I would just like to continue what everybody said, and I would like to see you come back and bring more information and just a little bit more research about the possibility of putting it in that park, and if not that one, just seeing what the options are.
Tell you what, Wayne, I want to partner with you on this. I'll help you do the outreach stuff on it. I think we've done really good together when we worked on the Parks Fee stuff. If you want to work on that, I'll help you.
Okay.
Let's spend the next month or so reaching out to the West Kaiser neighborhood. No, over there it's Greater
Gubser.
Gubser, yeah?
Gubser neighborhood.
Okay, so we'll go, I'll talk to Patty. She can reach out to the Greater Gubser folks. Let's get some really good data on it to kind of bolster this. And if you'll accept my willingness to participate with you on that, I'll give you 100%.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
All right, thank you, Wayne.
Thank you.
You broke your mic already?
Brand new system.
All that usage.
Debbie's saying I'm talking too much.
Never. All righty. New old business, appointment of somebody to the KFAB representative from the board.
Mr. Chair, can I do that?
Absolutely, I already did my sentence there, you can do it. Anybody have any other?
Do you want to be on another committee?
KFAB is just really exciting to me, and I get just wrapped into all that stuff with the chamber anyway, so I might as well go.
What is KFAB mean?
That's the Kaiser Festival
Oh.
Advisory Board.
Got it.
Okay, it only meets quarterly, so you're not committed.
It's
Well,
not like,
I'm taking the hit on that because I voluntold Donna for it last time, so.
what is it? Thunderbirds.
And I hear it might be
FIB, FAB.
going the way of the dinosaur, but.
Well, I don't know how they'd work it any other way, because they do meet once, or they have to meet once a year to approve Clint's bans. So that would be, for sure, but many times they cancel their summer meeting.
Okay.
Okay, and they meet at Christmas, before the Christmas season to calendar all the events.
Sounds great. It just sounds exciting. Sounds festive.
Sounds fabulous.
Fabulous.
Oh, very good.
Sorry, I had to do it.
That was easy.
Unless anybody else really wants to do it, but.
No, I already did my sentence there.
Yeah.
We actually had somebody have to call in from the hospital to get a quorum on a vote once. Oh, jeez. Memorial policy discussion.
That was a lot of reading.
Well, I highlighted a lot of stuff, so.
Yeah, you did.
I appreciate that.
So I really found it interesting that one city not only charges you for the thing, but charges you a maintenance fee over the life of the object. I
So-
don't think we're quite that cheap, are we, Robert?
So just a fun little point of historical significance. When Zaire raised this issue, Kaiser Times actually ran a really cool article, I think, asking about, was it Kaiser Times or the city? I don't remember who did it, but somebody did something where they said, does anybody know anything about this? And I think it was pretty quiet. But I spent a fair amount of time on Sunday utilizing the city's fantastic tool of looking through their archival material and going based off of the date of the memorial, which was 1992. I went through 92 and 93's city council minutes and Parks Board advisory minutes. I need a different hobby. But on Tuesday, May 11th, 1993, under other discussion, Mr. Wickman reported a lattice archway with climbing roses on both sides has been planted in Claggett Park in memory of a Kaiser woman by her husband and son. The husband was willing to donate money toward the manicuring of the area. Ms. Perry suggested the Rose Society be contacted to take care of the roses and perhaps add more bushes. This is the only thing I could find over the course of about a 2-year span that talked about this. I don't know that the memorial policy was involved back in 93.
There is none.
But was able to find a historical point in time on that. I'm going to reach out actually to the Rose Society if there is such a thing and see if they've got any record of it. But it was just kind of neat to find that. And I know that, I don't know, Debbie, did you guys put that together, that big archive thing for the minutes and all that stuff, that archive web tool?
Well, it is, it's an organization, it's a pretty simple organization. There are many tools out there that are very expensive with lots of bells and whistles. This one is a very simple one, it still uses a black DOS screen.
Nice.
So I have to input a lot of information. I do it every week.
Wow.
I do all the minutes and the permanent records are all there.
It's pretty slick. I mean, there's PDFs of stuff going back a very long way and lots of discussions from Counselor McGee on stuff. I learned more about 2 years of Kaiser history than I ever wanted to. But, so that's just a point of history I thought I'd share. Zaira, thanks for noticing that and then bringing it to our attention. That was pretty cool.
And thank you for all that research.
I had a couple hours on Sunday. I don't know. I would be interested to see though if Kaiser Times has any articles or obituaries about the family from back then.
Oh, I haven't asked.
What's that?
If I may, I think I shared this with the committee, but just in case I didn't, when I first started doing the research, one of the places that I went as sort of a last resort was our box of files that we have in archives for the different parks. Pulled out the Claggett Creek Park one and found a yellow pad paper with Rob Kistler's writing on it, saying that this man had asked for permission to put this memorial there. It had his name, and I don't remember what it was now, but that gave me one more thing to go by. So I Googled his name, and I did find an obituary, and it had a lot of information about the man.
You did find an obituary?
I did find one for him, not for Rose. Her name was Rose, but I found one for her husband. And he said that she was the light of his life, and when he died, he wanted to be cremated and his ashes put in the same urn with her. I thought that was really romantic.
That's so sweet.
So I just want to make that, it's just neat.
That's pretty
I kind of want to
cool.
fix that
That is,
trellis
that's-
now, like.
Yeah.
Impressive.
But they did not have any surviving children.
Yeah.
That was not her first marriage, so the son was probably hers from a previous marriage.
Oh, okay. Sorry to get us off track there, Mr. Chair.
It was pertinent to what we're talking about, mostly.
So Debbie, I think, what's the intent? Are we wanting to update our public space donation policy to kind of reflect some of this information that you presented, or Robert's gonna, okay.
Yeah, I think this is a good opportunity to take a fresh look at what we have currently and also what other cities are using. And we kind of found a missing piece, I'll say. I believe Zara asked last meeting, what is the city responsible for as far as maintenance goes for donated items? And I didn't really have a good answer for you. I still don't really have a good answer for you because it's not very clear in here. So this isn't something that needs to be answered right away, but definitely something I think that should be thought over thoroughly and try to add some more language in here for future reference, but also the same reference to the item that you found that, you know, are we to continue maintaining it forever, or forever seems like a long time to me, just because over time there's a lot of things that are donated.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's up for discussion. And it can either take place now, or you can think on it this next month and talk about it next meeting, or whatever you guys want to do.
Well, I know, you sent out some like examples, and I just picked out a few of the things that I like from each of the examples, because on one of them, it says that it makes that property, the donated piece, the city's property, which then would make it be like the responsibility of the city to determine whether or not, you know, they want to continue to maintain it after its life expiration. So that's the one thing that I like, that it said, like, there's one thing here that the city will continue to maintain it only for the expected life cycle of the donation. And that kind of fits for the trellis. I mean, the trellis is way past its life cycle. Like, it's rotten, it's starting to fall apart. But I also like that we can respect the donor. And so there is another section in here that does say that the city will contact the donor or the donor's family prior to making a decision on the memorial piece, to see if they want to continue, if they want to cover the cost of maintenance, or if they want it to stand and they'll fix it. And if not, then it's going to be up to the city's discretion whether or not they want to remove it, maintain it, or move it somewhere else, depending on the status or how the memorial piece is standing. But at the end of the day, I think it would make sense to have the city have that discretion, since it could go years before a memorial piece starts to deteriorate.
Yes.
So I guess my question is, this particular discussion about memorials and otherwise only pertains to parks. Now, I think the city policy at large might also need to be addressed, because I think that the Arts Commission could consider similar policies or things that may not necessarily be related to parks. I think we could probably answer the question as it relates to parks and what we expect from that. And I think the timing of it is good in that, and I don't know how to phrase this in any way other than to sound a little bit callous. A lot of our founders are getting old. And I think that we're going to start potentially seeing more and more of these items. And I swear I'm not looking forward to reading this part of the newspaper in a couple weeks. But, it's one of those things that I think it's timely, and I think we need to be really mindful about how we do this. And I think that there's a lot of good resources that you've given us. I don't know, maybe my point was, is there a larger picture here that we need to be looking at as a city in terms of the location and the type of memorials that might be considered, or are we just wanting to focus solely on what we're doing in the parks? Because I can see a nexus between sort of the Arts Commission points of interest, et cetera.
If I may, the Arts Commission, all the features that they have, speaking of the totem or the story pole,
Right.
because that's the most recent, those all have contracts with them that address the maintenance part. And the KPIC signs are all city property and the city.
So each individual sort of group has their own governance.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Well, that answers my question then. Thank you.
I think I would need more time to try to figure out what a memorial policy could be. If we could talk about this again next month.
Well, yeah, and I hate using this word, but maybe there's a group of us that might want to tackle some of this language together, so that we're not just coming back in and spinning our wheels again. I know we did some really good work on the parks rules, kind of working through that, and then some other stuff that we've done. And so I don't know if there's a few folks that kind of want to put their heads together on this and try to develop with parks staff some new language that we could look at, kind of pulling out some of these elements. And so I think in the meantime, we may want to be responsive and say, here's a few of the elements we've seen in this, the highlighted ones that individually we all think that are really important, and then sort of hand that off to these group of folks and say, let's make it real, right?
So who do you want to join you on
I
this
don't want
committee?
nothing. I took KFAB.
You're on everything else, man.
No,
So I can take a stab at it since I did bring this forward, but do keep in mind that next meeting is my last meeting on the board. I chose not to re-elect, but I can try to, if anybody wants to work on that with me, I don't mind taking a stab at it and trying to put something together for the committee.
what do you think, Wayne? You want to join Zaire?
Sure.
All right, I'll come play with you, Zaire, if you'll have me.
So let's have one more.
I'll do
Well,
it.
we got to watch quorum
That's
numbers.
okay, you get four.
You get four?
Because you have five makes a quorum, so this is she
Okay.
can have four people altogether.
Okay.
So that's 3. Anybody else for 4?
No, I
So
said
I'll do it also.
I'll go play with them a little bit too.
You don't have to, man. It's just giving you a bad time.
Well, you do it then.
All right, I'll do it.
So you did,
Okay,
okay,
now-
so I've got Zaira, Wayne, Matt, and Mike, and Mike, yeah. Is that
Okay.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think what would be good, over the course of the next week, if the rest of the board members could share your thoughts, go in and maybe, put, rank some of these highlighted, like 1 through 3, and either scan or email us or something. That way we can start to kind of conceptualize this and how it might look. And Robert, we'll probably have to talk to you and see what some of your goals and objectives might be out of that. You're making us do hard work. Usually in my other stuff, Nate changes hands and stuff. I'm kidding.
Just a couple of things real quick, just because we're in discussion, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair. We'll make contact with the donor. I think maybe say something like, we'll attempt to make contact with the donor.
Yeah, right.
I thought there was something, I don't know if it was, 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 I don't know I don't remember which,
The one is about deeming the Public Works Director
I
as
think that's the
deems it
Port of-
necessary. Is that the one you're looking at?
The
Yeah.
Port of
Yeah.
Los Angeles, I think that's
Port
where that language
Angeles,
is.
Washington, I think.
So it's, in the Port Angeles one, it's 2.3 I think is, the requesting party must also agree with the memorial may be removed at the city's sole discretion if the Public Works Director finds removal to be in the public's best interest. Right, is that the one you're talking about?
No, I think it's further down.
Where it says it'll make contact.
Where
Oh,
it
that
says-
wasn't, I'm sorry, that wasn't Port Angeles, that was.
Where it says maintenance under standards for new donations,
Oh, this is Roseburg's.
and it's under City of Port Angeles, this last sentence on maintenance. It says, if current information is on file, donor will be informed and given the opportunity to take further action at the expiration of the original life cycle. Is that what the one you're
Yeah.
referring to? Okay.
Yep, my bad. I was looking at Roseburg's.
I also love this, the city of Port Angeles has a form for a donor to fill out. So
Nice.
that makes it easy for the city to ever get in contact with them. It doesn't help us for anybody prior to that, but from here on forward, that would be awesome. There was also another blip that caught my interest was whoever's donating it would agree to
Maintain.
help maintain it. I don't think that's a bad idea. I don't think
it ties
it's
them to the
always,
project.
it does, absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
So you like this fee schedule here?
No, the next one.
The next
Form.
one?
That one.
Oh,
Just a couple quick thoughts I had as I was scanning through the material.
Okay.
Actually, that fee schedule's not terrible. It's a little pricey, but.
you get to pick what you want to buy from the city, then you get to pay maintenance on it for
Yeah.
the life of the product.
I'm not crazy about that, but
Park bench is $1,400.
it can be.
No, that's for the life of the bridge. You get $25 a year for 25 years in maintenance fees.
But I do like that it does state out the life cycle, so that way people know what to expect out of that memorial and not think it's gonna be there forever.
Yeah. We're not gonna rebuild it 4 times.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, vandalism, if something gets vandalized, it's donated, it's awesome, thank you so much for the donation. But if it gets vandalized, are we obligated to replace it every time it gets vandalized?
And that's something that it said on I think the Port Angeles one is really well written because it does address that in there
Yeah.
as well, where the city won't be held liable for any damage or
Yeah.
vandalized property.
There's a lot of good info in that one.
It's exciting. Thanks for diving in and getting some of these examples too. I think it's nice to have perspectives rather than trying to reinvent the wheel. Clint, what are your thoughts?
So, speaking of memorials, I noticed a lot of the signs in Kaiser Rapids parks are not faring well.
Yeah.
They're all crack serviced.
Yep, we've had a discussion recently with the company that those signs were made by, and they think that it's 2 different products that are on the sign. So you have the laminate material that actually has the color and the wording, and then you have another graffiti coating over the top of that, and we think the 2 are not liking each other, and one expands and retracts faster than the other, causing them to crack. So we are in conversation about how we can get that dealt with.
Has that got kind of a warranty on it?
I have not been informed of a warranty. The signs have been put in year after year after year, so a lot of them are actually getting to be fairly old now, but we're
Some of
working
them
on
are-
it.
some of
It's
them
in
are-
the discussion process.
Some of them are cracked pretty good.
Yeah, some of them have, if you were looking at a historic, like for the flood pole sign or something that has history and it kind of gives it almost looks like it was meant to be that way, like an old map or something.
Yeah.
It kind of looks cool, but then other ones, it doesn't look cool at all. So it's, yeah.
All right, we'll move on to Parks Report. Your last park report?
Okay, so I'm first. So I've been to Claggett Creek Park several times, and when the weather was a little nicer, not as cold and dark as it is right now. And once there was a soccer game there, so there is very high usage of the field. And early morning, I live right next to it, so I can really hear we can hear the rugby players as well. So it's a very high utilized park. There's really nothing big to report on it. You know, staff has been keeping up with it, maintaining the park. The grass is short. The parking lot's fairly clear. I don't really have much to report. I just want to say thank you for just the good work that you are doing with the park and keeping it maintained. And then for Wallace House, I haven't been out there in a while, I must admit. So last time I did go out there, I mean, it's a very close neighborhood park. So there were like people jogging on the sidewalk, and just the garbage can tops were all smashed in. That was the only thing I had noticed, but I've learned that that's something that's very common in our parks. And so other than that, nothing significant to report.
So how is the homeless problem in Wallace Park?
Hit and miss. I look forward to the river coming up soon. Not
Well-
because it harms them, because it does not provide a place for them to sleep.
You know, I
Wanted to be clear
sometimes
about that.
regret that the Boy Scouts built that nice trail down to the river.
Yeah,
It was a good idea, but I don't think in the long run it
well, they'll get in there no matter what, so.
So, Bear and Ben Miller. They don't change a lot. It's winter. So they're in pretty good shape for winter. Jeff,
Is not here.
No, Jeff.
not here. Wayne,
I take care of Country Glen and Hidden Creek Parks. I monitor them and visit often. I ride my bike there and I walk my dog there. Took a walk other day at Country Glen Park and I came upon a question. At the east end of the park, it goes into a pathway. And there's a sign there called Restoration Mitigation Area. Is that part of the park? It's as you're going down that pathway on the east side?
No.
Okay, so the park ends at the round grass
Yep.
area.
I've never
It's
really-
not that trail.
Never ventured over there myself. I believe
Because that's out of city limits.
Councilor Herrera can maybe speak to where that path goes.
Well, I know where it goes.
Oh.
I walked all the way down it.
Okay,
You can go, it goes to the train track.
okay.
I was curious. But I just wondered if that was part of the park, and apparently not part of the park.
what are they restoring there?
It's actually private. The city has access because of their manholes there. City of Salem.
Yeah.
Has
But it's
There's
private land.
About 5 manholes along that path. So
Yes.
there's probably a sewer underneath it. Okay.
I walk them occasionally. I walk that occasionally.
Anyway, that was just a question. Country Glen is looking good. There's no soccer goalpost, or no broken soccer goalpost there. And so you just have to see this grass and imagine these beautiful soccer goalposts there, but maybe another day. Hidden Creek, there are some, the pathway along Hidden Creek, there are some cracks in the pathway. Looks like from prior tree roots, but don't see the tree anymore. That's all I have.
How's the play structure at Country Glen looking? Is it getting all mossy and moldy again?
I don't look at it that close. It's there, and there's usually teenagers on it instead of little kids.
How's the graffiti been on the play structure since it's,
I was just telling somebody it was, it's a lot less than it was. This was a tough summer. A lot of graffiti, a lot of, breaking up the corners of the benches and writing here and there. But it's just fine. It's in good shape right now. And
It's painted a darker
the play
color.
structure is fine. I mean, it's minimal. We walk it every day and we there's the neighbor at the corner there, he told me that since I moved in there, the city does a good job of picking up the thing. And then my wife told him I'm the one that picks it up, so. But they do a good job when they do come in and do the maintenance there, but you won't see no gun wrappers, nothing there.
No.
I guarantee it.
So Chair, I forgot one more thing for mine.
Okay.
So in the last 3 months, there has been like teenagers who keep climbing up the really tall trees that are behind the basketball court. Last time it was really early morning and they got up really, really high. I mean, those trees are, I don't know how tall they are, but dangerously high to the point where one of the kids could not get down. And then it took them like a good 20 minutes to finally get down. And by the time I had already called the police department because I was worried for their safety. And so I did go out there and the branches are low where like people can just jump on and start climbing. And so it's like the second time in the last 3 months where I've been in my living room and I can hear kids yelling and they're just climbing and climbing up the trees and to very dangerously high levels. Like, yeah, so that's just one of my concerns is that those tree branches are kids can grab onto them and just start climbing and they encourage themselves, they're encouraging each other, and then next thing you know, we have kids that are stuck up there in the trees, and it's just scary. I would hate to one day see someone just tragically fall down the tree and hurt themselves.
Wayne, you forgot your bicycle report.
Oh, a bicycle report. We're supposed to be doing a project to identify the bike racks in all of the parks. And I said I was going to do that, and I haven't done it yet, but I will identify the bike racks at each of the 19 parks in Kaiser.
Thank you, Wayne. Mr. Holland would like to talk about the Little League Park.
I wasn't here last week or last month to report on that, but there is some major things going on up there. They signed a deal with West Coast Premier to do major tournaments here, and I mean major, major tournaments. These guys are the biggest on the West Coast. They do softball and they do baseball. We've signed 6 weekends, all day Saturday, starting at 7 o'clock in the morning till dark on both Saturdays and Sundays. And like I said, there's about 6 weekends that it's been booked. And that's going to bring a lot of revenue into this community. A lot of revenue. People at the hotels are going to help keep them full. All the restaurants, a lot of teams. Matter of fact, they just put on, a couple of our teams went down to Las Vegas and played in a huge tournament. I think they had 120 teams participate in a 4 or 5 day tournament that was down there. So these guys are really big. We have not booked the softball. They want to also do softball tournaments, and they can't seem to find enough umpires to do that here. There's a real shortage that time of year. But if they get that taken care of on the umpires, they'll put some tournaments here for that too. Any questions on that? The biggest problem on that, and I've been working with Robert, is the parking's going to be a nightmare. We got to see how we can pick up some more parking. And we're going to meet here, I think, pretty soon with Bill Lawyer on that.
Thank you.
You want me to go into since it's Little League there too, the lighting?
All right, you can do your lighting too.
All right. I wasn't here for last month's report that I was supposed to make. 2 things we're going to talk about. There's 3 items. One is gates. The other thing is security system. Now, this particular deal we're talking about right here, you see a picture of it. I'm putting that in at my house, and it's got night vision and day vision both. This is, it's not wireless, it has to be wired, hardwired. The clarity is a lot better where you can do that. These things have come a long ways, and the price has really come down. This is only going to cost me about $390 for that, and that comes from Costco. got good prices on those. And so I'm gonna get mine installed here pretty quick. So, I've got a report I'm gonna pass down both directions here. And this is a report from Joe's Safe and Lock. Now, that's not this equipment here, because I already bought that. These guys are gonna probably install it. But I wanna come back with a grant, if I can, a matching grant next month, to do the Kaiser Little League and the Kaiser Rapids Park. Yeah, Bill? Or I mean,
Can you be more specific? Where at Kaiser Rapids Park?
to start with, we're only looking at doing the amphitheater, okay? And at the Little League Park, we're talking about quite a few cameras there. I think it's 5 cameras there, because we have break-ins every once in a while. They haven't had it, you know, as long as you got your security lights up, sometimes that really helps. And I'm gonna talk about those in just a few minutes. But I've got prices here for both the Kaiser Rotary Amphitheater, and the second page is for the Kaiser Little League Field. If we can get help on some of this, it'll bring the cost down. But anyway, I'm gonna put a grant. If anybody have any questions on this here?
I didn't look at it in detail, but about how many lights and security devices are you talking about?
Okay, at the, Kaiser Rotary Amphitheater, there'll be 4 of them there, okay?
Lights and cameras?
No, we've already got the lights up there. The lights have been there, and that's this right here. This also comes from Costco. I can't even believe the price on these. This has been up at the Kaiser Little League Complex for 2.5 years. This light went out, okay? These are, whoever invented this, it's really slick, because you can put the lights anywhere you want. We have 2 of them at the amphitheater. We haven't had any problems for 2 years up there. Shouldn't say that because somebody sees this tonight. But this is the device. It's got a 5-year warranty on it. It's only $39. And some of these we could get volunteers probably to put in if they got electricity to them. But if you ever just walk out at nighttime to the amphitheater, and those lights will come on. Okay, they've got 3 different sensors on them. One's for distance, one's like the timing of it, you know, how long it stays on and the sharpness of it. I don't know why these went out, because this is a 5-year warranty on these, so I'm taking them back to Costco. All we have to do is, it's held by 1 screw right there. It's real easy to do. But I just love that no matter where you're at, it's got all kinds of flexibility the way they designed this. And I'll pass this along. Let's go this way with that. This is the one that went out. They're what they call LED lighting. So they're not bulbs in there. And but if you can see here, it says 5-year warranty on them. Really flexible. Anybody have any questions on those?
So you want to put how many cameras in the amphitheater?
Well, going back, so these are already in. We put those in 2 years ago at the amphitheater, and we put them in at the Little League Field 2.5 years ago, okay? So these are all done. The camera equipment, the 2 bids there, is to have Joe Safe and Lock do it. Now, it's probably going to come down in price from what we have here if we can get some volunteers to do some of this work that needs to be done on it.
I have a question.
Sure.
So these would be mounted to city structure, correct? Not the snack shack?
These are already mounted on the
No,
snack shack.
what you're referring to adding at the amphitheater, cameras?
Only the
The
camera
surveillance equipment would be mounted to what?
Well, on top of that, if you notice, there's a round pipe there. It's in the center and top of the roof.
Top of what?
That's of the concession stand. That's where we would hook the camera equipment.
Who owns the concession stand?
We do. But these would be portable, so you could take them out.
Okay.
Who would monitor it
Well,
if you have?
the Little League field would be monitored by the Little League, and the one at the amphitheater would be monitored by me. Because we would secure that equipment so it couldn't be damaged.
I'm concerned if they qualify for the grant application, if it was mounted to your snack shack and monitored by you.
Put it somewhere else. I mean, the guy went out there and I didn't tell him where to put it, and he came up with that, and to me, it makes the most sense because it's gonna cover everything. But put it on a tree out there. Doesn't have to be on the trailer. I mean, the lights are on the trailer because we wanted to, well, first of all, it helps when you're doing beer out there and it's late. And secondly, it picks up the concourse, and it picks up all of the stage down below. Pretty bright lights in addition to that. And if you want to do a different park, just tell me and I'll have the guy go do that. I just like to monitor stuff when I put stuff in to see how it works before you do a massive amount in parks.
I agree. I've seen good cameras, I've seen poor cameras. What you don't want to do is install a camera that shows a person doing something bad. But if the footage is not good enough to give to the police to identify who it was, it doesn't do them much good. They've obviously done damage and you can prove that they've done damage, but if you can't prove who did the damage, then you're nowhere farther than you were from the get-go.
But this
So-
damage is going to get greater and greater and greater in our parks.
Yep, I agree.
You're already starting to see some of that now.
Oh, yeah.
Burning your toilets up, damaging the bathrooms. Holy smoke. I mean, the damage of the bathrooms, they won't even, the chemical toilet people won't even put the soap in there anymore. You know why?
It's flammable.
It's flammable, and then the last thing that happens now, they steal them out of all the porta potties and mix it with alcohol, and they drink it.
It is
Now-
alcohol.
When Ace Chemical told me that, I didn't believe it till I talked to some other people and talked to an officer in Salem, and I was just shocked. And so what I have to do, I get the bags that you put in there for your hands, and because we lock our chemical toilets up, I don't have to pull those out. I just unlock them for the event. But other places, they're not putting them in. The handicap, I don't know if you've noticed that, Robert, but they don't put them in your handicap anymore.
Yeah.
That's out there. They just refuse to do it because they're stealing them every time they put them in there.
You're correct.
So if these lights work, maybe that's a solution to our lighting of the path at Beer Park.
Now, each one's going to be a little different. So the path, you're talking about you want to light the path?
That's been the request, is it
Okay.
not?
Is there electricity close there?
We got a cell tower.
I don't know. I don't know the details on
Okay,
the Bear Park
so
thing.
this type of stuff would be excellent for that. Because if somebody walks the path at nighttime, those lights are going to come on while they're walking through there. They won't stay on.
Electricity is definitely going
It's
to
a
be the
ways out.
costly
from there. I
piece.
mean, I live right
Yeah.
next to it. It's a
Mo-
ways out.
Most parks are going to have a problem with electricity.
Yep.
That's why I kind of took
We
the
do.
Little League and the amphitheater, because those already have all the electricity for it. Now, the other thing I'm trying to do with Joe Safe and Lock, that we don't have internet out there. So the question is, can this somehow be tied to the police department? So if something's going on, they can send an officer out there right away.
Is that a question to me?
Well, we don't have it, I don't think,
Sounds like a
there.
wish list.
Yeah, and I don't think we have it even at the Little League field. We use some kind of a phone system out there, but we need it in both places, so.
Well, I can tell you right now, a little over a year ago, I looked into trying to get a camera put out here so we could have a website sales pickup thing, right? 'Cause so people aren't coming to your homes or whatever else like that. And the response that I got back in my research on it was that it wasn't something that the police were interested in at the time, just simply because of the cost of maintenance and operating and storage and everything else. So that was at that time, and I don't even know what it would take to get it fed into some sort of a dispatch model, because dispatch is not done through here, it's done through a dispatch center.
Right.
So I think there's some significant challenges infrastructure-wise that,
On page 5, another thing you can do, this equipment that he has can be attached to somebody's cell phone to monitor. So if something's going on and it's kicking the camera equipment on, it'll notify you on your phone.
Sounds great. It'd probably be me, and I'm gonna get woke up at 2 in the morning every night due to a bird in front of
oh,
the
I'm
camera.
absolutely gonna go down there and
Yeah,
start doing
thanks,
that.
Matt.
Hey, Robert, you awake?
Yeah, I'm just
Let's-
trying to do something because I see that damage is going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And if we try to do some things like this, I know it sure has helped at the amphitheater and the Little League field.
Yeah.
Not the camera equipment, but even the security lights.
Have you had any discussions with the police?
I'm going to do that Thursday.
Yeah, I'm just curious what their thoughts are on it,
Yeah.
or their ideas.
Who would
or-
be the best person to talk
Probably
to?
talk to Lieutenant Copeland.
Copeland?
Yeah.
Okay,
Either that or Sergeant Trump, either Sergeant Trump or Lieutenant Copeland.
okay.
There's some other privacy issues and Fourth Amendment issues that come into this that.
You're probably going to have to post that there is camera equipment
yeah,
out there.
Definitely would.
So somebody's not doing something.
If I may, I believe there are public records laws as far as those surveillance tapes.
Right.
And they have to be stored for quite a long while, and they are actually quite large. So that would be another cost that we would have to invest in a way to store those. We get charged by the size of the files. And right now we get by with very little because it's mostly just scanned paper. But when you get into surveillance tapes, the cost goes way, way up. So that may be a bit of a hindrance on this.
If they're motion activated between certain hours though, then they wouldn't be on all the time.
Yes, yes.
So this equipment that he has, I don't know the stuff I'm buying, but the stuff that's quoted here is 30 days. And then it reruns over the top of it.
Yeah, and I
and
don't,
erases it.
That would be an issue with public records law.
yeah, because your retention laws
It
are
would
gonna
be more than
preclude
30
that a lot of
days.
times. So you'd have to have some sort of external server,
Backup server.
yeah, backup server, and you're talking.
Good question for the police, though,
Yeah.
again.
Well, and that was, again, I think that was the big deterrent from doing the website pickup thing, but, you know, again, that's 2-year-old technology, and the prices have come down. I mean, a 1 terabyte hard drive 2 years ago was $300, and now they're, I don't know, $90. So,
So Robert, when I meet with the police department, can you also meet the three of us?
I can, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I think the lights, just at a minimum, I think the lights are gonna really deter a lot of folks.
Right.
I think if you get that area lit up, and especially at Kaiser Rapids, specifically with the residents being there, you know, I would imagine they're gonna be good stewards of the neighborhood anyways, and if they see lights going off 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, they're gonna raise an issue to that.
Right.
So I think at a minimum, I think the lights is a really good idea.
But if you get the chance, walk out to the Little League complex when it's dark. Just go in front of the building, you'll see what it does, or go to the trailer at the amphitheater.
Well, the parks rules say
And
we're
it-
not supposed to be in the parks after dark, so
Why aren't these people reading our signs?
Because they're all
If you knew
cracking.
how many people were actually in the park at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, you'd be amazed. Especially at Kaiser Rapids Park.
Yes, they
Just
hook
walking
up
their
in
dog,
Kaiser
right?
Rapids Park.
What?
There's walking their dog.
No, it's more
Yeah,
than that.
right.
It's more than that.
You would be surprised what I have found in the big toy.
Clint, I like that you're looking at this. I think it's important, especially as, we're starting to invest more money into the assets we have in our parks. But I agree with Debbie. There's some public records concerns, some other things I think that you'll probably get from the
Police
the
department.
police
Yeah.
department that'll help us kind of get us on a good path.
Robert, you get to talk again.
Okay, just a couple things to update you on. Matt showed you the video of the shade sails. Got a lot of good feedback from park users. They're all very happy to see those and excited to use them next summer. We will be taking those down probably this week on a dry day to store them safely through the winter.
The shade sails with
And-
the vertical benches.
Yes, with the 6-inch vertical benches. Those will go up seasonally, like I said, probably June, July, August, September is kind of our thoughts for right now. That pretty much covers the heat that we may experience. They are not designed for water shedding. That's not their purpose, so we'll take them down. That way they'll last a long time. Leaf season is among us right now. We have gotten really lucky with the weather. I've never had this dry of a leaf season, so we are enjoying that, getting those dealt with quickly, and probably about another week we'll be through 90% of the leaves. So, Willamette Manor tennis court, or sports court, I should say, fencing contractors came in and started work in there this weekend, and that'll have nice new chain link fence installed on almost all sides of the court, and it'll be black instead of the old galvanized look. So it'll look sharp. Yep, it's coated. And lastly, the charge house is continuing to move forward with getting that demoed and out of our hair. It's just reached the point where it's not worth remodeling, and we've had multiple break-ins. As Clint said, things happen when it's dark and vacant. So probably shortly after the first of the year, that'll come down. And then we'll have a nice new footprint to start with. It will help with the amphitheater and just being more open to being able to see through there from just about anywhere in the park. So less opportunity for people to hide is always good. That's it.
Roland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This week with our council meeting, we had a few things. We waived the fee for the community center for the Kaiser Community Band, which will have their holiday concert. And if you haven't gone to one of those, they're actually pretty cool. I mean, they're the holiday, the community band is really, it's made up of two, the big band and then the jazz section, which they usually show up for the holidays, and that's a great deal. We also suspended the rules for vendors for the coming up for the Jingle Dash, they call it now, and the holiday parade. So what they do is you suspend the vendor rules where you're not supposed to, and they allow for that one event. And those are under rules by the chamber, and they have to, be there at a certain time and leave at a certain time. So they're under their jurisdiction, if you will. The city of Kaiser is, and the council has approved this, we're going to have a community center assistant position. That's the latest thing. It's going to be like an afternoon. I think it's going to be like from Tuesday to Saturdays, from like 2 to the evenings, and Saturday for late. And what that's going to do is give consistency to, I guess they have turnover problems with the part-timers that assist. And so they're going to create this position. And I think it's a pretty good idea for somebody to assist and be the assistant for Kristen, who does a fantastic job, by the way. And I wasn't going to take that. The other thing coming up is On Veterans Day, we had a really nice celebration, and I salute all our veterans. I come from a family full of veterans, 18 to be exact, with my immediate family, including my father and my brothers. I salute all the vets, and we have a lot of very interesting veteran stories that have been passed through our generation. Back to the council, I want to congratulate my good friend Vanessa Nordijk, who was just sworn in tonight. I would have been there if it was for tonight, but for Ward 7, city councilor for Ward 7 in Salem. And she was sworn in, I thought it was kind of cool, by her dad, who's also an attorney. Something that, also, I had one more thing I wanted to congratulate McNary because they won back-to-back, their football team won back-to-back titles. But although they ran into a buzzsaw with Sherwood and were eliminated in the first playoff game. So that's a little bit of that. Last but not least, I did attend the first meeting of the charter review, which is, some interesting things came up with the charter review. We had people come in and introduce or come up with some ideas. And one of the I thought was interesting was changing the council positions to wards, which I found interesting. And there's arguments, and I guess I'll look at it. There's arguments both ways. I've been reading about it in the past, and actually cities are getting away from that actually now. But there's something to be said about representation where, like in Kaiser, the research that was done by the gentleman that brought it up said that we had not had anybody from Southeast Kaiser being represented for like a very long time from that area. And it's always good to have representation, so, think of what you will. They will be changing and looking at some things, including bringing up an inclusion and diversity subject. That came up also. Another thing that came up was looking at some of the language that now exists, and they want to revisit or eliminate it, some of the language that we have in our charter for our city. That's pretty much all we had. Like I say, the highlights were the rules for suspension, and those things come up in council where you have events, and we have regular rules, and then sometimes you have to suspend those rules for certain events, and most cities do that. As far as like the Kaiser Community Band or anything community related, this city does a really good job of considering the community, the good it brings to community, and I know that I'm involved with Cal Club, and LAC, and the city is very generous in helping us achieve what we want to do, so on. That's why I'm grateful. Clint brought something up that I wanted to touch on, and that was a tournament to come into this town. I happen to be involved with Clint many, many years with the Little League, as my good friend Clay would know, and most of you. And the impact that those tournaments have in our community is huge. I mean, it is really huge. I'm not talking about just buying hamburgers and stuff. I'm talking about people that return to Kaiser. I know that in the past, when I was a tournament director, we would do a tournament, and there would be families there from Beaverton, in this particular case, that had nobody in the tournament, but they had been there before and they enjoyed it and they came back to watch a game. So there's an impact there, and that's economic impact. So we're always looking for that as a city councilor. I think that's very important. I think that's pretty much all I have. I just wanted to also thank you guys for your time on your park situation. And I will say one thing though, as we move forward as a committee, especially one that's being aired and stuff like that, I think it's important, and I'm guilty of it as much as all of us, that we sort of stick to Robert's rules. I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, we're all guilty of it. But people that watch it on TV, especially people that want to be on committees, I think they'd be nice to show the proper way of being recognized before you speak and so forth. Trust me, I'm guilty as anybody. But the reason I mention it to Parks is because you're a very visible and very active committee. And people that watch on, I wouldn't watch TV, myself on TV for a long time until I finally did. And then I realized, I should try to, do better in my presentation, talking and all that. And watch it sometime on TV. Watch these meetings, and you'll learn that it looks really cool when you really abide generally by the Robert's rules. And believe me, Kathy, our mayor, is a stickler on that, and she's trained us all to kind of be ready to recognize and do it appropriately. Case in point, we had a motion that died, and there's a proper way of doing that, once it doesn't, it died. And I think our council, our Parks Group is, like I say, we're on TV and we're visible, and I think we have to set the example for all the other committees. This is a very prominent, I really believe this, because you guys do a lot of really good work. And watching it on TV, I think it would be a good example to kind of follow that a little bit. And we'll be reminding folks, like I said, I'm as guilty as anybody, but try to keep it in mind as we move forward on future meetings, because there's other folks watching, like young people that are watching. I know I signed some in our leadership club. I sign sometimes to watch the city council meeting, and they come up with little things, and that's one of the things I think is very important, because our city is unique, and I want to make sure that we, as a counselor, I want to make sure that we sort of stick with it. We have fun, but kind of sort of stick with what we're, but it happens a lot. So anyway, I really commend you guys for all the work you've done, and we've had some great ideas from folks that come out in the community, and they come out on TV, and people see what we do. So think about that at all times when we're running our meetings, and that's just my 2 cents on that. And hopefully it's constructive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roland. Any other business, Matt?
Pigeonhole. So Clay Creek Watershed Council had I call it the first, but it kind of aligns with the school year. We had a project this last weekend, and I'm going to take a quick second to point out that this gentleman to my left, Wayne Fry, is at every single one of my projects, and he's always there with a smile and willing to get in there and work hard. And did you end up planting trees, or were you?
Planting trees and moving wood chips.
Okay, so we relocated 5 trees and got rid of a couple trees, and basically found out that a few of the trees in the arboretum we had weren't proper for planting. And we put out a whole bunch of the wood chips around the base of the trees, and just really kind of did a nice little project. We had, I think, 30, 40, 50 kids out there. Most of them were McNary ROTC students coming out to participate. What we thought was going to be about a 3-hour project ended up being about an hour and 25 minutes. But did a lot of work, filled up the back of Mark Kellier's truck with a bunch of debris to get rid of, and just really kind of knocked it out of the park. And the Watershed Council in general, as it relates to projects, for the most part, there's 2 groups that we see, a lot of Rotarians and we see a lot of young people. And we've been engaging McNary and Whitaker and Claggett Creek Middle School to try to bring out their students and kind of start to show that pride and ownership in their city. And the one constant is always Wayne Fry out there helping out, and Councilor Reed was out there, and Mayor Clark was out there representing the council. And
Jeff Davis and his family was there.
I was going to get there. His daughter had the coolest hat on. I wanted her to borrow it, and she told me no. But it's just one of those cool projects. And I think that folks worry about some limitations, but we'll find something for you, whether it's signing folks in or what have you. But keep your ear to the ground. Been working with our environmental staff to kind of come up with a couple of really cool projects this year. And because we're not going to be in the parks as much because Robert's doing too good of a job. And the other thing I just want to say is just welcome to the 2 new participants for the Parks Board. It's cool to see new faces in here, and welcome, and hopefully you'll come back and visit us again. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Any other business? Can we stand adjourned at 7?
We forgot to welcome Clay officially.
Thank you. I did that at the start of the meeting.
We did that, but on the record, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to welcome Clay Russian, who's been a longtime Kaiser participant on the Volunteer Coordinating Committee. Many of us have had to sit there and endure his questions, and now he's here participating with us. And I've known Clay for a real long time, and I'm just glad to have him on board with us. So, thanks, Matt. And we're welcoming back Mike Panalone, who came back, and then Dylan Duran also is back, and we will have 2 new folks at the next meeting. So, thank you for indulging me again, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Now we're at even adjourning at 8 o'clock.